Hey folks, Scott here, open-minded movie man, coming to you with a movie review. And it's of the film Aquaman. And this is like the, excuse me for a second, it's the umpteenth time that I've recorded this review. I did record a full-fledged review earlier today, but I wasn't really satisfied on how it turned out, and I was mostly tired throughout that review. So I'm redoing this when I'm a little more balanced. So anyways, excuse me again. Anywho, onto the film. I saw this film on the very last day of last year. Saw it around 7:50 p.m. Saw it in IMAX specifically, and it was definitely well worth the price of admission because overall, I really enjoyed this film. You know, is this a perfect film? No. Is it a flawed film? Yes. Is it the worst film I've ever seen? Not by a long shot. And I think it's honestly a film that's really self-aware of what its intentions are. This is a film that, you know, is really considered silly, over the top, and it's a film that doesn't take itself seriously. It definitely has, you know, moments that, you know, are dramatic, comedic, and just, you know, fun, action-packed, like you see in the beginning. You see a good little action sequence, you know, with his mother, the little bit of origin story that's there. Then we shift years later when he's adult and he's kicking ass on taking the space, not the space, but the mercenary pirates, you know, led by Crane. There's a kick-ass action scene, and yeah, takes out those guys pretty easily. And his physical presence is someone that you don't want to mess with, and it's, you know, definitely a great way to introduce you know, the character in his own movie. And to be honest, the trailers for this film really didn't really impress me much, because it looked like it was, you know, your typical run-of-the-mill superhero action flick that has, you know, a few good moments, and it just looked like going to be a bit of a mess, because, you know, the other two films, Man of Steel and, well, not really Man of Steel, but Batman vs. Super Asshole and Justice League, they were definitely messes of films that definitely didn't impress me. So there you have it. I didn't know what to expect, but, you know, this film definitely surprised me. And it's the fact that the film, you know, that Jason Momoa has really accepted and embraced this role. You know, it's a fun role as the wisecracking, you know, half-breed superhero that, you know, he does his job and he doesn't give a shit, and he just takes his lumps and goes with it, you know. I kind of have to admire a character like that in the actor. He's definitely, you know, relinquished that role for sure. He's definitely accepted, and he does very well in this. And of course, I'll get to the plot. Basically, you know, word gets around that he's definitely the rightful heir to the throne of Atlantis, and it's been known that his brother, played by Patrick Wilson, is basically, you know, desperately wanting the throne to pretty much lead Atlantis and declare war on the surface, mainly because he feels like the whole surface world has been corrupted and polluted the waters of their world. So he wants to pretty much make an example. He's definitely within his traditional standards, but he also has some corrupt methods to him that we will later find out. And Patrick Wilson does a pretty good job in the role, and I'll get to the pros and cons of the characters and the overall structure of the story. Anywho, so basically, you know, Arthur's being aided by this character Mera, who is basically the daughter of King. Let's see, what was it? King Nereus, who is played by Dolph Lundgren. I'll get to him eventually, but she basically possesses, you know, hydrokinetic and telepathic powers. You know, the ability to control water at certain times and etc. You know, she's a superhero too. So, anywho, she basically aids him on this journey, and they basically have to, you know, find this trident, basically so he can challenge his brother a little more. I don't know how to say it, but he'll be able to better challenge his brother, because we did see him challenge his brother earlier whenever he was captured, and they engaged in a little hand-to-hand combat scene. And it was done very well, and going into that, I think James Wan definitely handled those hand-to-hand action scenes very well. He's a very confident and competent director. he's really shown a lot, since doing quite a bit of horror films like Insidious and The Conjuring, and in the first Saw movie, from what I understood. And he's done a couple of other action-related films, like he did Death Sentence, and I remember thinking that film was pretty solid. And I liked Furious 7, even though it had its problems, but it definitely gave a good send-off to Paul Walker. I said it, so yeah. But anywho, going back in that, we see that they kind of go on this journey, like we see him going to the Sahara, and it's a beautifully beautifully photographed wide shot. Basically, everything you saw was well shot. Definitely kept within the angle. You saw what was going on. There was no fucking shaky cam, which I'm very glad he didn't do, because that would have sucked. Because I fucking despise shaky cam. But anywho, basically overall, he goes on this journey from the Sahara to Sicily in Italy, pretty much. And then he goes to this island, or what we later find out was an uncharted, excuse me, my nose is itching, but an uncharted territory that's never been explored, and it's kind of within the center of the earth, and it's a very beautiful place. There's even dinosaurs in there too. So basically, he of course retrieves the trident and is determined to stop his very determined and corrupt brother, Orm. That's his name. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention his name, but Orm was known as the Ocean Master, from ruling the world and declaring war and just the typical cliched villain, wanting the throne and wanting to incorporate his ideas on the world, pretty much. So yeah. But in getting to that, I think this is a film that knew what it was going for. It basically how should I say this? It was a film that didn't take itself too seriously. It's a film that stands by what it's doing, and it's a film that's really silly at times, but it embraces that. It's like I said, it's a fun film, and James Wan himself said that this is the film he wanted to make. He wanted to go all out. He wanted to make a fun and engaging film that would make the audience smile and just have a good time, and that's what he did. It definitely will have those over-the-top moments and those little, how should I say it? Whenever Aquaman retrieves the trident, he has this show-off moment where he's like, "Yeah, I got this trident, and I'm gonna kick some ass." So there you go. And then in hell, you even have a fucking octopus playing the fucking drums. It's somewhat corny, but hey, they freaking did it. It's the underworld. It's the underworld life. And speaking of which, the CGI artists that worked on this film and created this whole visual, colorful, and bright world, y'all deserve a fucking Oscar nomination for what y'all did. Yeah, it's CGI, but it was done very well. It reminds me of taking the inspiration from Avatar and bringing it into the underworld world. And hell, let's say it's almost like this, what the city of Blade Runner of LA would look like if it was very bright and had a whole bunch of color. And speaking of which, like I said, when I mentioned Wan is a very confident and competent director, he sets up the shots very well. He gets all the wide shots. Like I said, it's a beautifully shot film, like you saw in the Sahara and the places in Italy. He knows what he's going for, and he gets the hand-to-hand combat fights scenes pretty well, especially between him and Orm, and then towards the end of the film when they're battling again. And of course, you also have him encounter the secondary villain, David Crane, who later would rename himself the Black Manta, because we found out that later on that Orm's corrupt methods, because he actually kind of allied himself with Crane, he also supplies him some weapons and the suit, and of course Crane decides to modify them to his own design, and that's when he becomes the Black Manta. And we also see the fact that Aquaman, isn't perfect. He definitely he'll definitely win a few battles, he'll lose a few battles, he'll struggle a bit, so it showed that he wasn't perfect. He wasn't this all-powerful type of guy. And I like the fact that it kind of illustrated that, and it's kind of rare for it to do that. It easily could have just been him just, dusting it off like it was nothing. And they'll probably do that with a whole lot of female characters these days. Just dust it off and act, oh yeah, that was nothing. Anywho, that's for another tangent, but I'll get to probably the cons of this film. The cons, I guess, we do see an origin story, but it's very brief and it's kind of rushed in. Like, it was kind of cool to see Nicole Kidman in there for a little bit, but you can tell she's really de-aged and it's kind of noticeable. But yeah, to be honest, the first act seemed like a bit of a chore and kind of rough to get through. But once Mira saves Arthur and his father, I forget what it's Thomas Curry. That's you saw in the beginning. That's when we start to finally see it pick up the pace, and that's when the structure starts to move along. But the other con, I should say, was while it was cool to see Dolph Lundgren, he doesn't really do much in the film, unfortunately. He gets a chance to shoot at the submarine that kind of disrupts their marine life that's down there. But yeah. And also overall, there's some pacing issues and things kind of seem to be all over the place here and there. Like we go from this one place to another place and then to another place. But and then to be honest, the Black Manta suit kind of reminded me of like if Ant-Man and the character from Masked Rider got together and had a baby, and this is what you have. That's what it kind of reminded me of. It was kind of cheesy, but it did some cool things, but that's what it kind of reminded me of. And to be honest, the secondary villain didn't do much, but of course I think like towards the end, spoilers, there's a little after credits scene where they show him alive, and he'll probably play into the sequel if it gets made, because it looks like it's doing pretty well. But other than the fact that there is some pacing issues and there's some things that are convoluted and kind of happen too fast, I guess that's the one thing. That's one of the cons to this film. But on to the pros, all the actors do their job well. Jason Momoa has really embraced and relinquished this moment as Aquaman. He definitely has a great physical presence. He's definitely somebody you don't want to mess with. And he does all the action scenes very well. Patrick Wilson, he actually does a fine job in the role as Orm, the Ocean Master. Though one little con to him is that unfortunately they don't really flesh out his character that well, and I kind of wish they would have done that. And Mira, played by Amber Heard, she does okay. She has her moments. She's the one that's always the support and reminding him of who he is and why he should really embrace himself as the hero. And, of course, becomes his love interest. And then, of course, we all have Willem Dafoe. And I noticed they kind of de-aged him for the little flashback scenes whenever he was training with Arthur. They were okay. And overall, he does fine with what he's given with. And, of course, Dolph Lundgren. Cool to see him in the film. He's probably definitely enjoying this. He's definitely enjoying this year because he was in Creed, and that movie was probably successful as this film was successful. So it's good to see him, get into the year of some theatrical releases, because it kind of seems like he doesn't really do much theatrical released work these days, other than it was Expendables, I guess. But yeah, it's the second film I saw him in this year, so it's cool to see him in there. And then I guess Nicole Kidman, she does fine in the beginning. And of course, spoilers. Even though we are thought that she was sacrificed, somehow she managed to survive on that island. Apparently, she managed to somehow escape and survive those creatures that were trying to kill her. So it's cool to see that. And she does kind of play a role in towards the end of the film between the little the little fight sequence between Aquaman and Orm. So of course, Aquaman wins, but he doesn't kill him. He also reveals that their mother was still alive, and he also it's kind of good that the villain doesn't really die, and that maybe Aquaman's really willing to give him a chance to kind of redeem himself and make up for lost time, and hopefully they can come to come to maybe repairing their relationship. So that's kind of a good, positive feeling. There's definitely no downbeat ending or anything of that sort. And of course, the action sequences, whenever they're there, they're handled very well. I mean, hell, Aquaman's on top of this very gigantic creature when they're engaging with the battles of all the other what's the word? All the remaining kingdoms of Atlantis that have supposedly pledged their allegiance to Orm. So, but yeah. So overall, I think the film was definitely a fun experience. It was definitely was clear of its intentions. It was wanted to be engaging. It wanted to show that that DC can make a good film, especially in recent times, because Justice League and Bat Viagra vs. Super Asshole were definitely unimpressive and were convoluted messes, so to speak. But yeah, this is a film that I definitely would recommend, and I would definitely gladly see again. I had no problems with it. It was definitely a good fun popcorn flick. I don't think I can say anything more. But yeah, recommendation, I'd say go for it. Go see it. There's a reason why it's still number one so far. And will probably even beat Justice League. It didn't have a sharp decline like that film did, so yeah. Give it a chance. I give this probably, let's say, a B+. Other than the pacing issues and some plot structure issues that I had with it, and the fact that it felt rushed, I definitely would give this a B+, and probably, like, say, 4 out of 5 stars. Definitely a fun film. Check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Sure, there's some corny, silly moments, but that's what the film, knew what to stand for, and I think it's worth the price of admission. Okay, I'm definitely going to end it here, so sooner or later I will come back with another video, and you'll see what it is. Well, I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.